Jury entered.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated.
Mr. Lester, call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. This time, Mr. Dumercy will be testifying.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Go ahead. Thank you. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Delinord Dumercy, currently 25 years old.
And also keep your voice up.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Dumercy, what type of work were you doing?
At the time, I was on my way to become a manager at the restaurant Schuler Burger, owned by Don Schuler, former owner of the Dolphins. And I was a prep cook at a Jewish gourmet deli, 3G's Gourmet Deli.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up mostly between Orlando and Delray Beach, Florida.
And did you go to school in Delray?
Yes.
Which high? Did you go to high school?
Yes, I attended Atlantic High School.
I want to ask you first, and then I'm going to get back to the bulk of the questions, but I want to ask you about the shooting. So I want you to tell the jury, why you ended up shooting Mr. Peoples.
The reason the whole incident happened is I was on the run from the guy. That's what I can basically say. There were threats made. I've been shot at days prior. I went homeless trying to run away from the guy. And the days leading to the shooting, I stayed with a pastor of mine. And those 4 or 3 days I stayed with him, I only stayed inside the house because I was nervous of being out in daylight. And when I got comfortable, felt safe enough to step outside, the same night the incident happened.
Okay, now we're going to get into the incident. Let me back up and kind of give a little more detail here. How did you first, when did you first meet Mr. Peoples? How old were you?
I was, I'd say, 15. This was during high school.
In the same high school you went to?
Yes, correct.
And what led you, I'm going to ask a broad question, then I'm going to go back.
Sure.
But did you know, at least from your perspective, a reputation of Mr. Peoples that you took into account in, unfortunately, shooting Mr. Peoples?
Yes. During high school, it was a fad to post mugshots or arrest records of people back in, this was around 2011. James was known to be a violent person. I mean, we all have social classes we hang around in school. And the social class he really hung around was the class that I'd say carried weapons all the time. If you get in a confrontation with them, they would respond back immediately.
And was he known, at least from your belief, to carry a weapon?
Oh yeah, he was known to carry a firearm during even high school days, dating to adulthood.
And did you know of any specific acts that caused you concern?
There was one incident when we were in high school. Again, like I said, we always had mugshots posted on Facebook. It was when he broke into a gentleman's house and he did harm to the guy.
And now I want to ask you about the first time that you were threatened by Mr. Peoples. Are you able to put this in order to the jury?
Yes, I can. The first direct threat from him, I'd say it was the day I was coming from work, my morning job, and I was riding by a park. When I stepped off my bicycle to be at that park, I heard a loud bang, and next to my feet, dirt flew up. I look, I turn around, and I see a dread-headed person, a person with dreads, hanging outside the window with a handgun. The second shot was fired. It went through my shoulder, went past my shoulder, and then I ran. at the time, I didn't know who shot at me.
And now, how did you come to learn that it was Mr. Peoples that shot at you?
Yes, 2 days after the shooting, my last night of work at Schuberger, I received a call. And the first 10 seconds of the call, there was a lot of background noise, so I can only depict of what was said. The first couple words, excuse my language, the first couple words that were said were, "You lucky that I missed, stay away from baby." And then the person gets into a place where there's no noise in the background, and he says, "Anywhere you stay, anywhere you work, anywhere you live, I'll find you and kill you. You're not worth it, but I'll make you worth it." And I asked him, "Who's this?" And he said it was James. And after that, I hung up the phone.
And now, in time relation to the actual shooting involving you, when did that take place?
He called me 2 days afterwards. He shot at me on a Monday and called me on Wednesday.
And what did you do after he called you at work?
After that, I've been shot at, and it was affirmed that I was being hunted like an animal now, so I quit both of my jobs. The guy apparently knew where I was living and working, so I decided it was time for me to just go on and run. So sad to say, I had to basically become homeless, and I started living in some bushes under a bridge near Boynton Beach, just trying to find some secure place.
And before we get to that, I want to ask you, did you learn ever that Mr. Peoples, or someone you believe to be Mr. Peoples, actually came to your mom's house?
Yes.
Okay, and tell the jury how that occurred.
It was one day, I believe I was still at work, and my mom called me and said what she thought was one of my friends, tall black kid with dreads, came to the door asking for me.
And how much the shooting at the gas station took place December 8th. When did the call from your mom, when do you think that occurred?
Say 5 or 6 days before. Actually, you said prior to the shooting?
Yeah, prior to the shooting at the gas station. When do you think the call from your mom occurred?
Yeah, about a week or 8 days before.
So did that concern you, or?
Yeah, it did. I mean, it's basically describing who's after me. I get shot by a guy with dreads hanging outside the window of a car. I know a person with dreads is planning to kill me, and then somebody shows up at my mom's house. So I couldn't exactly go there. That would be putting them at risk.
And when you said that you became homeless, let me back up a little. But did there come a time that you lived with William Neves or Neves?
Yes.
And when was that?
That was during the whole month, almost the whole month of November until the 27th or 28th.
And did you tell Mr. Neves about the threats you were receiving and any of the issues that you felt threatened by Mr. Peoples?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell him about being shot at?
Yes.
And how long did you live in Mr. Neves' home?
Close to a month, until the end of November.
And where did you move to after Mr. Neves' home?
After I told William what happened, that's when I became homeless.
And can you tell the jury where did you live when you were homeless?
I lived in some bushes under a bridge. I knew because I used to volunteer at the homeless shelter, and that's where I decided to stay because who would come looking for you around there?
Did you buy a gun?
Yes, I did.
And where did you buy the gun from?
I bought it in Boynton.
At a store, or the streets? Or?
No, it was just somebody on the street.
And why did you buy a gun?
Because I was scared, and I knew the guy said anywhere he found me, he would kill me. So I believe I had the right to arm myself just in case I did have to defend myself if the time came.
And did there come a time that you moved into Pastor Jackson's house?
Yes.
When did that occur?
And for about 3-4 days of being homeless, I wasn't getting any good meals. I wasn't able to take a shower. And I basically cut everybody off. I blocked off even my own mother. So I went to my pastor's house trying to find sanctuary, and that was about the time.
And were you living at Pastor Jackson's house on the date of the shooting at the gas station?
Yes, correct.
Okay, I want to play the shooting for you. And I want to play when you're walking in. Hey, had you been to this gas station before?
Yes.
So where are you going at that point?
At that point, I was trying to actually escape out the back door, make some distance between me and peoples, and basically run across the street.
You can stop right here. What were you doing at the back door?
I was trying to open the door.
And were you able to open the door?
No, it was locked. It wasn't one of those locks that you can turn. It's one of those locks that you have to put a key in to open.
I'm going to come back to it. Can you tell the jury what led up to you going into the gas station? If you could start with when you first saw Mr. Peoples in a vehicle. You want to, yeah, can I, Mr. Dumercy, step down?
Yeah.
I was going to. There's no paper. Just right up. So, we have one of those. Thank you. Just for the record, who's drawing something first, then I'll ask a question. All right. Okay, now, if you could orient the jury on what you just drew.
The Chevron, T stands for Chevron, where the incident happened. This is West Atlantic in Congress. This is another gas station across the street, a Walgreens and a small pizza plaza shop.
Okay, and can you hold on one second. Let me get a different color pen. If we could, here's an orange pen. Can you draw where you first saw the vehicle that Mr. Peoples was in? Okay, where were you?
I was right here on the sidewalk.
Okay, now, were you looking for Mr. Peoples, or how is it that you happened to notice him?
I was coming from the park, hanging around with some friends, and I was coming from this way. When I crossed the light, it was a red light for them to go. I was on the sidewalk. James was in the car. He was in the passenger seat. He rolled down the window, and I kept going. I didn't want any contact with the guy. I went near, I'd say about 2 feet away from where I was parked at on my bike. And James stopped here at the plaza. The plaza used to go at high school, closed around 5. I heard a honk, and James got out of the car. He had both of his hands raised up, basically saying, what's up? And after that, I went right here next to the Chevron. My original plan was to go to the Chevron and just buy some cigarettes. I saw James get out on foot. He walked basically from the plaza across the intersection all the way to here. Now, I saw all this happening, and then the car he was in came around and picked him up where he was at. They went the opposite way as they were going originally. So I thought the coast was clear. I could just go to the Chevron and buy my cigarettes. When I went to the Chevron, that's when the incident happened.
Did you park your bike somewhere?
Yes, I parked my bike in the car wash. These are, this is the gas pump. I parked my bike right here near the car wash, with hedges.
When did you first see that vehicle and Mr. Peoples again?
When I parked my bike, I was going inside the Chevron. When I got close to the door, I saw the same car they were in pulling into the Chevron. So I thought I could go inside the Chevron, run out the back, and haul ass across the street. I would put enough distance. I couldn't exactly outrun them on foot or on a bike. They were in the car. As I went inside the Chevron, there were 2 doors, one leading in, one leading out. As I went inside the Chevron, I opened the front door. When I went to escape out the back door, it was locked.
Then you weren't able to get out, obviously. Okay, and what happened next?
After that, my mind started racing. I mean, every creature on this planet, even humans, have a basic instinct.
So let me ask you, did you believe that Mr. Peoples might be armed?
Yes.
And did you believe that he was there to do you harm?
Yes, based off what he said when he called me and shooting at me.
Okay, what happened next?
When I was in the Chevron, I saw it can escape. I looked outside the window. Every gas station has a window so you can see the front door. When I looked outside the window, I see the car he was in drop him off at the gas pump. As he's walking towards the Chevron, the same car swerves and parks right in front of my bike. And my only means of transportation is blocked off, and my exit is blocked off.
Okay, what happened next?
Then that's when I knew he was specifically coming for me. They crossed the intersection on foot. Just when they stand.
Okay, what happened next?
After that, when I saw that the door couldn't open, I turned around. Before I got to the door, I did have a handgun in my book bag. When I got inside, I had to hold the handgun, or hold the whole book bag, because I couldn't exactly run with a handgun swinging around in my book bag. It might fire off. I turned around and reached into my book bag. As I stepped outside, I fired the initial shot at Mr. Peoples. He turned. I thought he was reaching for a rifle. I believed he was reaching for a handgun. And then I shot him a second time. And when I ran after him, I was going to hold him at gunpoint until the police came, but he reached up and tried to grab the gun I had. So it was a little wrestle. Then during all this, I looked to my side. The car he was in was gone. I didn't know if they were going to come back, shoot back at me, or retaliate, so I left the scene.
Now, did you know who else was in the car?
No.
So you didn't see that Ms. McRae was in the vehicle or the truck?
At first, when I first saw the car, I just saw shadowy figures. I thought it was about 3 or 4 people in the backseat, in the car and whole.
But did you believe that had you not pulled and used your weapon, that you yourself would have been shot or seriously hurt?
Yes.
Is that why you shot Mr. Peebles?
Yes. I believed he was coming to kill me. I believed he was going to make promise on his threat. The guy already shot at me before.
Objection, narrative. Sustained.
Had you been able to make it out the back door, would you have pulled the firearm?
If I was able to make it out this back door, none of us would be here.
So, is this an accurate depiction of, from your view, what took place that night?
Yes, correct.
Your Honor, I'd like to move this in as defense 1.
No objection. Defense 1 will be introduced without objection.
And can I hand this to the clerk?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dumercy, you can sit down. Mr. Dumercy, I want to ask you about the park.
Yes.
But there's been, I'm not sure if it was during the interview or other testimony, that the park was near Ms. McRae's home. Is it near the home?
The park I came from
Right.
when this happened, it's about 20 minutes away from her grandmother's house, not her home.
Okay, now the shooting's taken place, you fled the scene, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And where did you go?
I went under a bridge near Atlantic, and just to wrap my mind around what was going on at the time, and this is not something that happens to everybody every day.
Objection, narrative. Overruled.
What happened next?
After that, I called my uncle. I let him know what happened. And I called my mom, and I let her know what happened.
And what happened next?
After that, she told me to turn myself in. That's what I was planning to do. And the next day, I turned myself in.
Okay, you went to the Delray Beach Police Department, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you talk to an attorney yet or not?
No.
And you went voluntarily, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And the jury has seen the statement.
Yes.
But did you tell them about threats that were made to you by Mr. Peebles?
Yes, that was the first thing I told them. They asked me why I'm here. I told them it's because somebody wanted to kill me.
But let me turn to the text messages between you and Ms. McRae. But what was going on between you two? What's going on with those text messages?
The majority of those text messages are response to threats. Now, in my phone, the text messages you all have, it's cut off to a date. During that time, when we were texting, my phone broke, so I had to get a new phone. So her phone would have all the older messages. But there were many threats she was telling me this guy wanted to kill me beforehand. And I thought I would have to fight fire with fire. I couldn't exactly let this guy think he intimidated me. He would walk all over me.
What was your concern? They make a point, at the shooting, why didn't you call the police when he shot at you? Why didn't you call the police?
I mean, in the place where I grew up around Delray, it's not exactly the best place. If I would have went to the police, exactly what would they have done. They would have interviewed people, and my name would have been put in the mix. If they arrested James, then his friends would be coming after me because of that fact, and I would have a bigger bullseye on my back. Not just one person, but multiple people. I'd be labeled as a snitch, and in some areas, that's basically a death sentence.
You know, you made a point of, you talk about in your interview with law enforcement that James lives on 9th Street. There's a group on that. What's the deal with 9th Street? And did that play a part in you not calling the police?
It's basically, I say, the worst part of Delray Beach. It's where basically I think it's a gang hangs around the most, and it's not people you would want to clash with. You wouldn't win.
And so I'm asking the same question on if you're getting, forget the shooting for a moment, threats from James. Is that the same reason why you didn't call the police about the threats?
Repeat that again.
Yeah, I'll repeat it again. But is this, why didn't you call the police on just the threatening phone call itself, you know, let alone the shooting? Is that the same reason or not?
Yes. If I called the police, I would literally have a whole gang of people after me for one of their little friends getting locked up. And if the police then arrest one of them, they'll surely go over there and talk to most of them.
And that concerned you?
It did.
Actually, I was going to put it on the board, but let me give the exhibit. What's the color code? What's the one with the color code attached? 31. This for the record, it states 31. May I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
This is states 31. You obviously have seen this before. There's a couple addresses that you had texted. That you had texted apparently to Darnisha. Tell the jury what those addresses were.
They're just abandoned houses. I thought I might as well send this guy on a wild goose chase. I'm not exactly gonna send him where I lived.
So none of those addresses come back to any homes that you lived in or resided in?
No.
And did you ever send him any real location where you lived or stayed?
No.
And the statement that you gave to the police regarding threats, being shot at, him going to your mom's house, had you told other people about that before actually going to law enforcement?
Yes.
And what about the text where you're saying, bring chrome? I'm summarizing here, but where it does sound like you're talking like a thug, I guess, for lack of a better word. Why?
Because, like I said, they're sending threat messages to me. I just felt that I had to respond in some way. I'm not going to let somebody walk all over me. Even anybody would tell their kids what to do when a bully starts bullying you. You can't let them get the upper hand.
And had James not threatened you, would you have shot him?
No.
Had you not believed that James was armed, would you have shot him?
No.
Did you believe James was potentially armed that
Yes.
night? And what about knowing about his background and history Did that concern you in regards to arming yourself and unfortunately shooting him?
It made it worse. Knowing the guy's reputation and knowing he was specifically coming at me, shooting at me, it did make me want to arm myself. Because the police, they can't protect me 24/7.
Did you feel that the police could help you at all?
No. What would they exactly do? I mean, they wouldn't be around me every day of the hour trying to protect me.
Just could have one more moment.
Yes.
This one, let me just add just a few further questions, Mr. Dumercy. There is a part of your interrogation where you're talking about that you were angry, you were glad, where you felt relieved that Mr. Peoples was shot. But what was going on in your thought process with law enforcement towards the end of the interrogation?
Well, at the beginning of the interrogation, I came there because I felt like I was justified in what I did. But it seemed every time I told them I acted in self-defense, they would get mad. They'll throw the whole thing of, you're a man, you're supposed to be pissed if somebody else is messing with your girl. I thought I came here to tell them the truth, but they didn't want to hear any of that. They wanted to hear their opinion, their version of the truth. And after a while, it's 2-on-1. I mean, it's police tactics. At one point, I felt that if I gave them what they wanted, they would try to help me, but they didn't. They didn't even look back on anything I said or check up on any of the threats I said was made to me.
Do you believe that affected you and your, I guess, lack of a better term, answers to them as the interrogation progressed?
Yes, correct. I mean, mixed with days of basically only getting 2-3 hours of sleep. The same night that this happened, I didn't sleep. I came in there traumatized. I mean, who wouldn't be traumatized with the incidents that happened?
Objection, narrative sustained.
You weren't happy about having to take force, is that correct?
No, who would be happy about that? Taking a life? Nobody would.
Okay, that's all I have here.
Okay. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our lunch recess now, so let me have you all come back at 1:30. And while you're on your lunch recess, please do not discuss this case with each other. Don't discuss it with anyone else. Don't use your cell phones or any other electronic devices to look up anything about this case. You can talk about anything else, but not about this case. And please go and have a nice lunch, and I'll see you at 1:30. Thank you very much.
Give me 1 second. Make sure your pads are on the chairs.
Okay, anything else before we take our lunch recess?
Your Honor, based on Mr. Dumercy's testimony at the end of his direct examination, the police did not follow up on anything that he said. We would again renew our request as rebuttal evidence for the state to call Officer Leon to testify that he did follow up on whether or not there was a shooting that occurred at a specific time and place that the defendant testified and found no evidence that there was ever a shooting reported there.
First of all, just briefly, he did not say, he said they never followed up on the threats. He didn't say the shooting.
Anything he said.
Can we have it read back? And I would still object if that didn't open the door.
Okay, she's got to work. Trying to find it.
It wasn't the last question.
I think it was either the last or the second.
It was a response to.
Right.
It was right at the tail end.
It was an answer.
But he
not a
didn't
direct
follow up.
question.
They didn't follow up with anything I said.
Okay, they didn't even look back on anything I said or check up on any of the threats I said was made to me.
And the police did do that.
Right.
Well, actually, I would object because it's more prejudicial than probative. It just shows calls from other people. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. And but there's no way for me to cross-examine the people who did call in. It's out there that no one called in shooting, but he admits he didn't call in. So the fact that other people didn't, why is that relevant? I mean, they may have heard it and just decided not to call police. So it's solely more prejudicial than probative. It doesn't prove a fact.
Because the issue is that now they've said he didn't follow up on anything. The law enforcement officers did in fact follow up on what he said that day. So for the law enforcement officer to be able to come in and say, I did actually check and I could find no evidence of a shooting that day should be permissible based on the fact that the defense opened the door.
And the state is seeking to admit the testimony pursuant to 9803 subsection 7, which states that evidence that a matter is not included in the memoranda, reports, records, or data compilations in any form of regularly conducted activity to prove the non-occurrence or non-existence of the matter if the matter was of a kind of which a memorandum, report, record, or data compilation was regularly made and preserved, unless the source of information or other circumstances show lack of trustworthiness. Earhart's evidence goes on to say, in that same subsection, technically evidence of the absence of a record is not hearsay under section 90.801. The record is not being offered to prove the truth of anything, rather is being offered as a basis for inference of the fact of non-occurrence.
Well, Mr. Plesson, I think it's relevant. I think you can make argument. You know, just because nobody called in doesn't mean a shooting occurred. For the same reasons that your client just said he didn't call. You know, if you call in and they get your name, you're a snitch. So, I mean, I'm going to allow it in, but I think you can make a very good argument for the same reason your client's claiming he didn't call.
Well, Judge, let me do a second step argument then. That you would allow the officer to say he did check on the shootings, but not testify as to the contents of what he found. I believe that to be, hearsay and more prejudicial and probative, not relevant. The fact that he didn't find anyone calling it in is actually consistent with the defendant not having called. But to show that other people called other calls in but not shooting, how is that relevant? So in other words, they'd be able to ask him, did you check to see if the shooting occurred on that date? And he says, yes. I would just end it there. I wouldn't object to anything further than that if you're going to allow that line of questioning.
Well, let me ask you, Mr. Barnfield, what questions are you going to ask?
I would ask Detective Leon, are you familiar with the area of Delray Beach that is Pompey Park? He would say yes. He would say that it is Zone 5. I would ask him to describe what Zone 5 is. He would indicate that that is Pompey Park and a residential neighborhood in that area. I would ask if he was requested to perform a search of the computer-assisted database to determine whether or not there were any calls for a shooting that occurred in Pompey Park on November 28th of 2016. He would say that he did. I would ask him to describe what a computer-assisted dispatch is, and he would testify that in Delray Beach, if a call comes out, it is categorized and it is placed in the computer-assisted dispatch. I would ask him if there is a shooting call or a call of an explosion or fireworks or anything like that, would that be separately categorized? He would testify that yes, it would. I would ask if he searched for those types, anything consistent with a report of a shooting that occurred in a park or residential neighborhood consistent with what the defendant indicated to law enforcement. He would say that he did that search and there was no record of any such call on that date.
Okay, I'm going to allow that in. I think you can certainly cross-examine the detective in a variety of ways, showing that only means that nobody living in that area, which I guess is a bad area for the client, was willing to call in and give their name or whatever. I mean, I think you certainly could have effective cross-examination, but I think the door was opened by your client for letting this in, and for whatever it's worth, so I'm going to allow it in, and I think you can certainly cross-examine. All right, anything else before we take a recess?
Nothing to say.
Okay.
Judge, that transcript that defense was gonna give me today?
Oh, Ms. Flynn, did you bring the transcript?
No, I forgot.
Okay.
I can provide the court. Oh, wait, no, Mr. Fleischman emailed the court with the transcript yesterday.
Is that the one that you were going to give the clerk?
Yeah, the full statement.
How many pages is that?
I think it's 57
I think it's larger than that,
or 78.
something like that.
I don't know if I have enough paper for that.
I can print it out.
We'll copy it.
We'll
How
copy
can you
it.
do when you get back?
Okay, we'll be in recess. And we go to the state's crossing.
Mr. Parkfield, I'm listening.